Hey, Biz News Show, Sunday, 11 a.m. We are live on air. You know what it is. We're going to be talking weekly happenings, focused, economically focused on what has happened, and we're going to dissect it in an unbiased, impartial way. Here's what we're going to do something a little different today. I'm going to go and do a 2-minute sort of pause as I just allow folks to come in, right? Just allow folks to come in. I'm going to play the intro, the channel intro for about 2 or 3 rotations. And then we're going to hop into the show. Okay, so we'll be right back, and we'll get into the nitty gritty when you see this pretty mug again, right?
It's young to the beginners. It's young to the beginners.
Back at it again.
Until we're back at it.
Until we're back at it again. We're back at it again.
It's young to the beginners.
Back at it again.
Until we're back at it.
Until we're back at it again. We're back at it again.
It's young to the beginners.
Back at it again.
Until we're back at it.
Until we're back at it again. We're back at it again. Boom. We are live. Song's over. Intro's over. So the little thing I'm going to try to do a little different nowadays is kind of just get that little intro sequence in there. Does a few rotations, gives me a chance to share and do a few different things in the back end here. Usually I can't do on air, right? And so nonetheless, hello. Today is the 5th of July, right? It's really happy to be here per usual. You know what the show is. We Haiti Biz News. We are the CNBC, the Bloomberg of Haitian business activity, economic activity, general happenings. We try to be apolitical as possible. The goal here is to inform in a way that's going to empower and charge someone's capacity here to do the right thing. Not just do the right thing, do more, right? Do more to push the country forward. And where we can, we try to provide information. Of course, this is your boy Seejeanty. Yeah, I am, of course, a person who moved back a few years into it all. And I'm here in the trenches. Now, I know probably the first question folks are asking, hey, the airports are reopened. How come I don't see the background of the Haitian office? Listen, we're going to get into that particular news story. But when the first week, every airline is charging $500+ one way to get in the country. You know what? I'm waiting to the second week when prices are sane again, and that's exactly what I've done. The tickets purchased. Let's be clear. In fact, one reason why we won't be on air next week is because I'm going to have so much I'm going to have to do when I touch down in the country. There's going to be just no feasible way to get that stuff done and also prepare for the show and also shoot the show. So next week, just to be clear, we won't be on air, right? But the following week, not only will be on air, but we'll be back in country, just like we like it, right? So we're looking forward to that. I know you guys are for sure, right? So lots to talk about today. As you always remember, we have a lot of other content on the YouTube channel, same name, Seejeanty, right? We have Haiti Biz Spotlights. We have Sights and Sounds where we go to different touristic spots, hotels, restaurants, right? A new Palais series, which I'm certainly looking forward to recharging back up, right? Because that series right there is a series where I'm going to be talking to you about specific topics related to making sure you maximize your chance to be successful and win, right? When you get into the country, if you get into the country. Of course, you got to be very careful nowadays. I rarely advise folks not to be in the country until the COVID vaccine's a thing, unless you have to be, right? But nonetheless, want to get that content out, that information out there for your benefit, right? And of course, a bunch of other stuff. For example, the podcast which we've been producing for the entirety of COVID, just to make sure that since I have been in the country, I have been able to produce the content you guys are used to seeing. We're still having those conversations about those conversations related to people who are doing it, people who have sizable investments in the country, people who have shown that despite whatever you hear about the country being difficult, what I've been telling you, which is there's workarounds for every potential problem. There's a solution. There's a way forward for every obstacle. And those folks who we had over 16 episodes, so I think we had at least that 16, at least 13, about 13 guests. That podcast is still on every medium. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. It's on every podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It's on all of it, right? And so no excuse to stay in power, right? In knowledge and power, or be empowered, right? And FYI, we're gonna be doing our season finale episode this week. Right, we're going to be dropping a sort of recap episode, just me and Mark, just chopping up, looking back at the season, the phenomenal guests we've had, and see how we're going to be able to retool and get the podcast in a particular way that is going to be exactly the way we want it, which is the way we want it. We're all looking to be that Joe Rogan clone, right? Sort of. So us in a room, getting our guests in that room if possible. If not, that's fine. We'll Zoom it. All right. So again, look forward. I'm looking massively forward to how we're going to be moving forward on the podcast once we get back. But again, check out the season ender coming this week. And of course, last week we had an incredible guest. Duquesne Fednard was just an absolute beast of a guest who provided us with incredible nuggets. I mean, the guy has 400. He's been running 400 plus jobs as a, and since he was young, he was someone who's been just in that entrepreneurial vein, doing incredible stuff, incredible work. And we had a chance to talk about his past, and also he laid out real strategies, right? And we look at a guy, a role model for myself, and this is myself now. He is that, and I was so happy to leave the podcast season with highlighting someone like him, right? So again, if you haven't seen that episode yet, it's up on the channel, right? It's on a different podcast, the Haitian Diaspora Living in Haiti podcast, Haiti, right? So do check that out, right? As always, we do have a little ticker below, right? Boom. For those who are inclined, the past few weeks we've had just incredible folks who've really bought into the mission, what we're trying to do here, and no obligation to donate, no obligation at all, but just if you do, what happens to that money? We put it together in a war chest, and that allows us. It's going to allow us to, when we get back in the country, to go to places like Jacmel, go to places like L'Assemblée isn't Jacmel, right? Ilavache, for example. So many places, OCAP. I'd like to get back over there. We did a massive episode a while back. I'd like to get back up there. And now that money's put together, because I have a crew. It's not just me, right? I have a crew. And of course, when you leaving this Port-au-Prince area, you got to take care of hotels, got to take care of food, right? And so all that is put together and allows me to do that. So again, no obligation. What you can do, and it doesn't cost a thing, is share the stream. Share it. Share the stream. Share it on your social media. For those on Facebook, for those who are on YouTube watching me, I'm pushing 20 plus folks on those mediums right now. Make sure just hit that little share button. Get it on your personal page. Get it perhaps in a group. They're just like Haitians living in Florida, Haitians living in New York, all those different groups. Go ahead and drop this stream. This information is going to benefit everybody, right? This information here is going to benefit everyone of Haitian descent. And that's really the goal here. The goal is to keep folks informed the right way, right? Because don't get me wrong. I know there's the Haitian, Telemetropole and all those stations in America, but that's, your dad listens to that. Your granddad listens to that, right? This is something for us of our group. It's in English, right? To keep us informed and keep us informed in a rational way. We're not tracking out conspiracy theories here. We're not politically biased here. We're just literally providing and reporting the facts as is, right? As is. Of course, for those who are watching live, please, we encourage conversation here, by the way. We encourage conversation. So please drop a comment, however you listen to it on IG as well. Drop a comment. We read everything on air. Everything's going to be read on air, right? So drop that comment. It's a conversation, right? You guys are my co-host, right? And the more conversation we have, the better valued conversation episode this will be, right? I've pushed 3 hours on this thing before because the amount of back and forth we've had was so value added. And folks stick around. You guys are crazy. I'm crazy for sticking around for 3 hours. You guys are crazier for listening for 3 hours, right? In this day and age where, folks are saying, social media folks don't have a very small attention span, right? So hats off to those folks who do that or catch most of the show in any case, right? Of course, we just left 4th of July. 4th of July was yesterday. And given that so many of our folks are watching from America, for those who partaked in barbecuing, partaked in firecrackers, definitely hope you had some left over. I certainly did. I had a fantastic rack of ribs that I just chowed down, right? So certainly, however you look at July 4th, the traditions of just eating out, picking up, right? And those vegans too. I know there's plant-based burgers that are just out this world nowadays. So no, even the vegans aren't being left out. nowadays, given science, right? So again, lots to talk about. Let's kind of jump into the headlines. Before I do, I want to say, Watt Mini, thank you so much. Watt Mini has started with the appreciative donations, the war chest donations, with the amount right there. So Watt Mini, thank you so much. Good morning to you. Certainly appreciate Watt Mini, someone who's always in the comments, always providing feedback, which I listen, read, and see always how I can tweak based on that feedback. So I do appreciate Watt Mini. Thank you so much. Of course, that war chest, as I mentioned, and be put together so we can do incredible, cool content in the future. So Watt Mini, again, thank you so much. You're the real MVP. William Centil, good to see you. I'm not the champ. You are the champ. Good to see you, brother. Of course, William Centil is someone who's doing incredible work with his Arise project. He's working and doing mentorship programs to empower the youth over out in Haiti. And so he is someone who you should go ahead and give him a follow. You should type in Arise Project Haiti. I think that should probably pull it up for you. Follow his page. Do some really great work. So hats off. I saw you had Johnson Napoleon on your program last week. So that's, big ups on that. Hope that has boost your numbers up a little bit, Williamson. Lionel Pierre, good to see you, man. Good morning. Happy to have you on the stream today, as per usual. Thanks so much. And a lot of our other folks who are in IG, who are being a little reclusive, I want to wish you guys a good morning as well. So headlines, we're going to be talking about the reopening of the airport. Of course, got to talk about that. COVID numbers, right? We're going to be talking about the COVID numbers in Haiti, right? I was looking at my wrong notes there. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we are going to be talking flights. We are going to be talking COVID numbers. We are going to be talking some economic and social assistance, how that's been happening, there's been a total recap of how that has gone. International aid, every week a different international aid partner has stepped up to help Haitians and Haiti respond to this crisis, knowing that Haiti is such a difficult situation. We're going to be talking about that. Haiti U.S. grant program. There is money being provided by the U.S. for programs in Haiti to regular people. All right, we're going to talk about that. Banks. There's lots of issues, lots of things going on in that regard. We're going to be talking about that. Prison release. There's a massive scandal going on right now. Massive scandal. Right. I reported last week. This week, we're gonna follow up on that story. New penal code. Holy crap. I mean, the game has changed in Haiti. Last time, 1836 was when these set of laws were in the books, completely revamped, completely rechanged. We're going to be talking about that, right? Judges on strike. Are they? We're going to talk about that. Agriculture. There's some happenings happening. I like that. We're going to be talking about that. Digicel, Conbit pour Changement. This year's activities in the books. We're going to be talking about who's won, why they've won. The Wizza shipping logistics scandal. Ooh, I know you guys. I know you want to be a Haitian if you did like a little bit of zeh sprinkled on your spaghetti in the morning. We got that zeh for you. The Wizza shipping logistics scandal. We'll be talking about that. And you got some cultural happenings too, happening in north of Okap. And so that's going to be talked about today as well. And also Belladere. That's some really interesting stuff happening in Belladere culturally as well. I look forward to talking about that too. So again, we have a packed schedule, so much to talk about, so much to get into. We had a busy week. And so I'm very excited to kind of get into the news and just jump in, right? Certainly. All right, so let's take a sip of water, and then we're going to pop right into the episode. Whew, that water was manna from the gods. You want to hit another hit. There we go. Oh, manna from the gods. Some special water there. So let's get right into it. So first and foremost, COVID numbers. Let's get that out the way and done first. 4,834 active cases. This week is the first week that we've actually seen a negative total count, in active cases. Not that we still aren't getting a lot of people affected, right? We're still getting a lot of people affected. Like just yesterday, there was around 100 plus active new cases. But what's happening is a lot of the prior cases are being removed from the board, right? For example, we have 12,868 healed, right? So a lot of the folks who were flagged as active because they've, not died, they're being considered healed. And so we're actually starting to see a decrease in active cases. This is the first time since, again, we're now in week 15, right? But this is the first week we're actually seeing a decrease in active cases. Now, given that the airports are reopening, given that people are going to be coming in, potentially asymptomatic or with symptoms, I do suspect those numbers are going to increase. Of course, the total number of deaths thus far, 110 deaths thus far. We have 169 people hospitalized, about 4,000 people in home quarantine right now, right? So I'm not too optimistic. I've been watching this for a while. I still of the mindset that Haiti is going to get the worst of this. This might be a potential catastrophe on the scale of the earthquake. We're very far from getting a vaccine. We're still about 6 months out of getting a vaccine, getting real impactful healing element to kind of counter this viral disease. And on top of that, I know for sure they've talked about the drug out of Madagascar. There was in fact a meeting among Jovenel on Zoom that was broadcasted talking about it. But I haven't heard or seen much of it. So I'll be back in the country. I'll be myself tracking that particular medicine down, right, to talk about it if I can find it. But I haven't heard anything about it from afar. But certainly until we get a hard treatment like a vaccine or that drug, which is sort of been following the news on it, there's certain properties of it that seems to be helpful to helping fighting that disease or that virus. So we'll keep an eye on it for sure. DR, just really quick, DR numbers, 15,191 active cases. Their numbers aren't going down. I mean, last week they were about 12,000. This week they're pushing 16,000. So their numbers are still going up. 775 deaths, 193 people in ICUs, 12,000 people in home quarantine. And so certainly they are very far from getting over. But yet they're reopening their borders. They're reopening their airport in particular, right? And so I don't know how many Dominican Republic folks we have here out watching the stream. Maybe you guys can let me know what the rationale is, how people are feeling in DR. We do got to talk about DR because we share the island. So if it's a massive amount of cases, obviously it is going to spill over into Haiti. So it's important that we stay cognizant of how many folks are being affected over there. And what the response is. By the way, the DR has continued to keep their land border closed, FYI. Their land borders remain closed, though they're allowing flights to come into the country. In fact, you can actually take a flight on Sunrise Airways from Port-au-Prince to Santo Domingo, right? You can fly over, but you just can't cross over, right? Meaning very tactically, what the Dominican Republic is saying is, yeah, we'll get your people who can afford a plane, but we don't want your poor who usually cross the border in and out. We don't want them. So that's what's going on. That's how I'm interpreting it. If there's any DR friends, feel free and drop your opinion on what's going on below. Right. Just really quick, let me hop in. Ivan Gillam dropping $25 to the war chest. Oh, thank you so much. Again, that money is going to be used. That money is going to be used to allow us to do bigger and better things here in Haiti. We're going to put that together, and those funds are going to be used to support the staff, potentially get equipment, do different things to up the quality of the stream. And I can tell you right now, those guys who've been so generous the past few weeks, I have actually. Not only are you looking at something brand new, this webcam I'm looking at, has been part of the war chest expenditures. And also, I've also picked up a brand new, very high definition, low aperture, low f pointage kit camera, right? Base camera that I'm looking forward to really showing off when we get back in Haiti. Again, all because of the war chest contribution. So the Ivan Gillam, hats off. Thank you so much. Certainly appreciated. Thank you. And thank you. James Lubin, good morning. Good to see you. Happy to have you in the cast as always, James. We got Mark Joseph flexing for us. Good to see you, Mark. Always happy to have you in the stream, brother. Always happy to have you. Let's take a look in the IG. Let's see what folks are saying in IG. Let's see. Let's scroll up. Let's scroll up. Let's scroll back down. Let's scroll back down. I thought I saw something in there. What is going on with this? Why isn't this? Okay, there we go. Let's see. Here we go. We got Mango Dudius saying, are you pro-COVID vaccine? I'm pro-COVID vaccine because I'm not a whack job conspiracy theorist. Sorry. Those who are into that sort of style of interpreting reality, there's I think didn't what's his name? The honorable Farrakhan. I think he had a half of his speech yesterday just getting into the minutia of conspiracy. So of course you're more than welcome. More than welcome to head over there for that. We're sticking strictly to what can be proven by science. So excusez-moi, désolé. I am looking forward to the vaccine so I can get back to freely enjoying life again, right? And those, and the Oiki Express Explorers just asked for the Cash App. Boom, I just dropped it right there for you. The Cash App right there is hashtag $Seejeanty. All right, thank you, Oiki Express. Thank you so much. Right, it's Animated Decisions. Bonjour. Nous là, cause nous là, forme posée, fait ça nous capable dans mauvais temps ça yo. Nous là, oui. Merci pour check là. Rock Andre is someone doing incredible work. Very happy to see Rock Andre for the first time here in the chat. For those who don't know who Rock Andre is someone who's blazing the path of empowering the youth and Haitian native entrepreneurs for quite some time. He has an organization, in fact, dedicated to that cause. For those who don't know who Rock Andre is, just go ahead and just do a quick Facebook search on Rock Andre. Do follow him. Again, someone I respect tremendously, and also an entrepreneur himself. Has an incredible pizza shop. I'm still waiting for the invite so I can do a Haiti Biz spotlight of your pizza shop, Rock. I'm still waiting for that. So happy to have you in the stream, Rock. Happy to have you. Animated Decisions follows up. You're gonna drink the Kool-Aid. Hey, this ain't here, man. This ain't, we're pro vaccines here, man. I'm sorry. Dorothy Jean from Houston. Really enjoy the deportee story on the podcast. Didn't know she was from Houston. The population here is definitely growing. That's fantastic. That is fantastic, Dorothy. I'm very happy that you listened to it. There's a connection there from you. That's very, very happy to hear that. And again, I've heard the most positive, folks who said, man, I've listened to that deportee story. I was in tears. Marie is someone who is, that's why it's so important to be able to tell these stories, especially from someone like Marie, who, yes, she lived a hard life. Yes, she made some poor choices, but we don't throw away the baby with the bathwater, right? There's still potential there. And she has turned her life around, and she is someone who is changing the world in Haiti in particular, building homes, educating youth, really turning really a situation that would be tough for anyone into something that where God is working through her own words now. So again, if you haven't seen that, it's our episode 12 or 14, I believe. So again, you haven't seen that episode yet, do check it out. It's on the podcast. You see what we're talking about, right? So thanks, Dorothy, and good morning to you. Right. So let's talk about the flights, right? No sip of water. So let's talk about the flights. Right. The flights, very interesting. Very interesting. So a lot of folks have reached out to me. Chris, what's going on? Haven't heard. I've heard this and that. I don't know what it is. What's going on? I heard you need the test. You don't need the test. There's going to be quarantine. There's not going to be quarantine. Here's the facts as we know it today at shooting. Right. There is no requirement at all. You have a pulse, you'll be able to enter the country, right? Boom. The things are right back to where they were, right? If you're a Haitian citizen or born in Haiti, you can come in. If you're a visitor, you got to pay that $10, $15 tourist visa, per usual at the customs. But beyond that, there is no requirements right now. Now, that said, there's been a lot of back and forth in terms of the prime minister going on the radio saying one thing, and then the very next day, people from the transportation ministry, customs, douane, have said no, that's not a thing yet. Nothing has changed, right? That's really been driving a lot of the confusion. So the reality is, right now, there is nothing. Now that said, I am still, and actually just yesterday the day before I got my COVID test. I'm waiting for my results. I know it's going to be negative because I've done none of that nonsense. Gone out. I've always worn my mask, washed my hands. I've done it. I feel great, right? No fever, no nothing. But I got in the COVID test really for two reasons. The first, just to have that piece of paper in my hand in case things do change, because they could change. And in fact, he's hinted that a lot of folks have hinted that the first few flights are going to let folks in. But after about 15 days or so, they're thinking about changing it to making sure that folks have a negative COVID test in their hand. So I want to ensure, if that happens middle of the week, because it could happen. That's how I got stuck here in America, just out of nowhere. They decided overnight, tomorrow at midnight, boom, the airports were closed. They may decide, on Wednesday that Thursday, anybody coming in needs a COVID negative test. So boom, I got my COVID negative test. I advise anyone who's watching the stream who's in America coming into Haiti, because they have to, that they get their negative tests, this week, get it in hand, because at any time those regulations can change, right? So that's number one. And number two, you should do it anyways, because honestly, I'm sure you do not want to be the one infecting, going to Haiti and infecting anyone, because Haiti doesn't have the capacity, right? And of course, coming from Florida is experiencing just yesterday very shy of 12,000 new COVID cases, right? The statistics are possible that you may have it, you may not even know it, right? So I would implore you, if you have to come to Haiti, again, first off, only come to Haiti if you have to right now. First off, right? I have to. I got business interests there, etc. But if you are, I'd say get that COVID test just to make sure you're really fully in the clear. But then also get it, because at any time they may be changing the rules on coming into the country. I hope that's clear for everyone. A lot of folks have been reaching out to me. Hope it's very clear now what the conditions are. There are no conditions, but get the COVID negative test just in case. All right, got it. Great, boom, perfect. Right. And some other news related to the flights. American Airlines said that they resumed flights, but they will not. I repeat, they will not be flying the Cap Haitien anymore. Cap Haitien is officially without an international carrier. Before they were flying, I believe, twice a week to Cap Haitien, or once a week, some very low amount. They had cut their flights down to a very small amount of flights. Spirit, of course, as we know, Spirit is no longer flying in and out of Cap Haitien. And of course, the excuse or the reasoning behind that, American Airlines said, is that the virus has forced them to reevaluate a lot of their flights. Cap Haitien is not particularly unique in terms of them removing. There's been a lot of other places they've decided not to fly to. I'm hoping that once COVID has settled down and things can return somewhat to normal for the economy of the world, Cap Haitien will be reconsidered. The fact that the second largest city, very important and very beautiful touristic city, is in effect without any international carriers anymore, is a tremendous shame, a tremendous loss for the touristic economy there, and just inconvenience-wise, like for those who live up there, and you have to fly to Port-au-Prince, and then you have to take, and what is it, 6 hours or so to drive up to Cap Haitien now. It's a tremendous inconvenience, unless of course you're going to fly using Sunrise Airways, take one flight and then get on another flight and basically pay your plane ticket twice, because it's pretty expensive. That Sunrise Airways flight is about $300. And from Port-au-Prince to Cap Haitien, pretty expensive, right? And so it's a tremendous loss for convenience, tremendous loss for the city. And so we'll see. Hopefully before the end of the year, I will be able to report that Cap Haitien has picked up an international carrier. So we'll see. So that is the final update as it relates to flights in the country, right? Let's keep moving. So the Economics and Social Assistance Fund, FAES, has provided updated numbers to their performance over this particular very difficult time. And they've reported that they've provided over 500,000 food kits distributed throughout the entire country. they've been operating out of, are working with 350 community restaurants throughout the country, and have served over 69,000 hot meals. These meals, by the way, are usually they do have to provide something like 10 good, 15 good, a very small amount, to the the people who are buying the plates, but very affordable, right? Because usually these plates usually sell for 150 good to 250 good, somewhere around that price point, usually speaking. So a much more affordable plate. 146,000 people have received the month-cash distribution of 3,000 good. If you remember, the Haitian president, Jovenel Moise, said that they were going to try to be a country that functions and provide financial assistance to their citizens like every other country. And so they looked into their piggy banks and said 3,000 good might be an amount of money that might be helpful to some Haitians. And basically 1.5 million Haitians were going to be targeted to receive about 3,000 good. Only about 146,000 have received it right now, which is, between you and me, pretty troubling, right? It's a pretty small amount. First off, 1.5 million in a country of almost 12 million people. That's small already. And the fact only 146,000 have actually received that distributed funds, very troubling indeed. Of course, my next question is, of course, if they've set aside for 1.5 million people and they've given Digicel that amount, for that amount, of course, I do hope, and we do need to make sure that money doesn't just disappear, as Petrocaribe has proven. Money can disappear. Lots of money can disappear. Billions of dollars of money can disappear in the country. So we certainly hope accountability and that money that doesn't get distributed does return back to the Treasury, so things can be done in the country, like build schools, like build hospitals, like proper infrastructure investments. We'll keep an eye on that news story, of course. 54,000 workers received 3,750 good. That was another plan of President Moise to help with the manufacturers who were left jobless, or when he closed down manufacturing in the country. Of course, as we know, a lot of manufacturers have been allowed to reopen, though I believe right now they only are allowed to operate about a 60% capacity to help follow social distancing norms, right? And of course, a lot of them were allowed to reopen even sooner because of the need to create face masks and other PPE equipment. And so, but during that period, they were given 3,750 good, which is about equal, by the way, to 15 days, 15 work days is what it's equal to, right? So that's the update from Fayez. And overall, I can tell you they're trying, right? And that's certainly, this is probably the first time we've seen, really, minus out of smaller, Mama Chérie sort of programs, where the Haitian government has really gone on its way to really provide a response for the hardships that are going on in the country. That we can applaud, that we should keep in perspective as a very important positive. We got to keep that in perspective. But is it enough? Of course it isn't, right? But just like someone doing something for the first time, we like to encourage positive behavior. So Haitian government, here's your pat on the back. Okay, there you go. Good job. A+ effort. Now try harder. Do more, right? A lot of people need that consistency, period, right? Let's keep it moving, right? We have, let's keep it going. Next news story has to do with international aid. Next news story has to do with international aid, right? The World Bank has approved 20 million from the International Development Association to provide budget support for COVID-19. Right? This is in addition to they've distributed other monies, right? I think last episode we calculated the Haitian government has received somewhere around $400 million from IDB, World Bank, European Union, USAID. I mean, you name the IMF, you name the organization, they've provided, in addition to putting a hold on interest payments or payments in general for a lot of the loans that the that Haiti has on its books. A lot of that has been paused, right? So this really has been an incredible, important boon for the Haitian government. This COVID happening, because a lot of the funds before COVID was not going to be distributed to them because of the fact that we don't have a parliament, right? But the priority of assisting in COVID in Haiti and Haitians potentially dying in large numbers have superseded the governance requirements of a lot of these organizations. Arguably, you can argue for it, but certainly, I think the idea is in the right place. We have to get assistance to the most vulnerable Haitians as much as possible. So I'm certainly agreeing with that. We have to see how we can still put pressure on the Haitian government to do and operate within the bounds of the Constitution. As we know right now, we do not have a functioning parliament. Elections need to be held, right? But it hasn't happened yet, right? And so that's kind of where we're at. We're going to talk more about that further down. And a big part too of what this 20 million is supposed to start to move towards is more social programs for Haitians. For example, Core La Vie, Kore La Vie, LAIVI, was a program that was very interesting. It was run by the USAID, and what they did was to provide vouchers, these paper, like an alternative currency in a way that a lot of rural Haitians could use to buy local food from farmers. Now the farmers would get these vouchers, give the food to these Haitians, but then turn around and convert these vouchers to actual cash, actual good, right? And so this is a way to actually not just import food and give it, but actually encourage farmers and farmer development, and also Haitians to buy locally, right? So fantastic, exactly the sort of program if I was running USAID would put in place. And so certain programs like that is what a portion of that money is supposed to go towards to genuinely assist long term the capacity of Haiti and Haitians, right? So fantastic. We need programs like that. We'll keep an eye on that, right? Let's take a pause real quick. For those who are watching, just a reminder, share the live. Partagez live là. Partagez. Right? However you're watching it, drop it in your WhatsApp, drop it on your Facebook profile. However you're watching, if you're on IG, send a private message to someone who you know will appreciate this information that we're talking about today, right? Let's get some more folks in here. The more folks who are in here, right, the more folks who are commenting. By the way, those, don't be shy. I have over 30 plus people watching the live right now. Drop your perspective. Whatever I'm saying, whatever I'm sharing, drop your perspective. Everything's read live on air. It's certainly appreciated wherever you contribute, right? You are my co-host, right? So do drop it. Let's have that conversation. How are you taking that news? What's your perspective? Is it full of, is the government doing it out of love and empathy? Are they full of it? Share it, right? We got some pro-Piachaka people in here. We got some Lavalas people in here. Who do we have? Give your perspective, right? We're about having a conversation here. I'm not for or against anybody. This is bringing the facts in, right? We got Wansley Pierre in here saying Haiti needs to change fundamentally, like Barack said about the USA. I certainly agree with you. Haiti does need fundamental change, certainly, and of course that's why I'm here. That's why we're here, to help with that conversation and help empower folks to move forward in that right direction. We got Johnny Sellis in here. Johnny, good to see you, Johnny. Hope you're doing well. Johnny Sellis is someone who's impacting through Le Mojo Show. Le Mojo Show is a show I'm watching after I get off air, right? So do check Le Mojo Show out. It's based state-based, different issues affecting the Haitian diaspora, Haitian Americans in America are discussed. So do check that out. It's him and Mona Lisa Farah who do a pretty good job each week, right? Le Mojo Show, right? We have, by the way, this reminds me too, next week, by the way, we won't be on air, just FYI, we won't be on air next Sunday because I'm going to be in Haiti. A lot of stuff I'll be catching up on. But I will be making an appearance late Saturday around 4-ish or so. The Haitian Millennial Money Conference. I'll be on that, by the way, just FYI. So I'm really looking forward to being. It's a virtual thing, and so actually, you guys will be able to catch me in Haiti, in that usual Haiti environment. And so do make sure Haitian Millennial Money. It's on there on Instagram, so do check them out and do check out that stream. I will be sharing it, of course, on my page, but just FYI. I didn't mention that at the top of the hour. Just FYI. Try to remember to mention that later in the evening. In fact, let me put a little note for myself here. Boom. Just to make sure I bring that up at the bottom of the hour. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Petty Clermont, appreciate you. Good morning. Thank you for being. Thanks for the comment. Certainly appreciate it, Teddy. Happy to have you, brother. Right. Let's keep it moving. For those who are doing work in Haiti, I know there's a lot of folks who are either looking to do work or already a part of an organization doing great work in Haiti. The U.S. Embassy, the public diplomacy section, is providing funding specifically. This is called the Public Diplomacy Small Grants Program, right? It's a program that's supposed to support academic mobility between the two countries, the USA and Haiti, to provide empowerment towards youth, innovation, entrepreneurship, right? It's supposed to pass on the democratic ideals of freedom, press, intellectual freedom, and also encourage English language, right? They're offering a grant up to $23,000, right? You can be an NGO, you can even be file as an individual, right? You can file as an individual and use this fund over a year. The program, you can talk about whatever program that you want to do or have done, right? And get funding, right? If you can make the case, right? So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and drop, for those who are on Instagram and YouTube, I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link right there. Boom, right there. I just dropped the link, right? I just went ahead and dropped the link for the application, right? So you guys are able to see the sort of thing that this program potentially can fund and assist with, right? And that's the application website. So again, this program is really to help, again, imagine if you had a sort of program where you were helping teach folks English, right? Or helping prepare someone to be a group of young adults to be empowered civically, right? This grant would allow you to fund potentially for a year, up to $23,000, a program to help with that, right? And so certainly, I think it's a big opportunity for a lot of folks who are in that vein of educating and helping empower, right? Especially maybe entrepreneurship, maybe good governance, maybe health, right? This is a very large, ambiguously worded program on purpose to allow a lot of different sort of positive programs to potentially win money. Now, this is the cap. I think they have $300,000 set aside, right? So that would make let's do some math really quick. 300,000. Let's see if they were to award the max to every single project, that's about 13 projects they're looking to fund here, right? So there might be more. I don't think every program will need the full 23,000. So get in. The deadline, by the way, the deadline is July 17th. So you don't have a lot of days. You don't have a lot of time. So please go ahead and get on top of that. All right, guys. Don't say Seejeanty didn't try to get some money in your hands for the activity you're trying to do in Haiti. Seejeanty is doing it, right? Okay. The next news story has to do with banks. Next news story has to do with banks. BRH has, the Central Bank of Haiti, in effect, has basically said that they will, or they require that commercial banks have some compassion. What does that mean? IG. The link is on Facebook and YouTube, right? So switch over onto that page, and that information is there. Okay. So because there's concurrent streams going on right now. Okay. Okay. So yeah, moratorium on loan payments. Right. This BRH has said you guys have to have some compassion. There's a lot of there's a difficult situation for a lot of people right now, and the BRH has said, this is a step beyond even America hasn't done this, right? Though a lot of companies, banks have allowed forbearance and a lot of other things, but I don't believe that has come directly from the government, right? So the government, the Federal Reserve of Haiti, BRH, has said that September 30th, 2020, is how far you are allowed to not collect full payment from anyone, right? Only interest payments at most, right? At most are you allowed to collect from individuals. The same thing for loans. Any loan granted to a business, December 31st is how long you're supposed to allow for interest only payments, right? And no fees to be assessed. No fees, even if they're late, whatever. No fees are to be assessed on any loans in the country because of COVID, because of the very difficult financial strain that COVID has put a lot of people in, a lot of companies in, right? And also they said also no dividend payments as well, no dividend payments for the entire financial year as well. Given the very tight times, it would be inappropriate to do any dividend payments for the year for any corporation in the country. And so that's I think very good news for a lot of people. I know a lot of business owners who had loans outstanding, who are complaining about that difficulty, right? And giving that, again, we already talked about it last week. GDP of Haiti is looking at -4%. I'm gonna say it again, -4% is what the GDP is looking at to be in the coming year. This at the end of this fiscal year. And so it's a problem. It's a difficulty, right? And this is certainly a step in the right direction. And we're not, and the banks, BRH isn't telling banks you guys are totally screwed, right? The interest ultimately is what they care about, and they can still get that interest payment potentially, but that entire principal balance. Let's give the people some breathing room, right? Let's give some people some breathing room, and that's really good positive news, right? BRH has also continued. You can, for those who don't know, BRH, just BRH Haiti, BRH Haiti. That is the Central Bank of Haiti. They've started to publish. They've been publishing for a while as much information about how banks are operating. They've been very aggressive in trying to improve the transparency of the financial system in Haiti. In that same vein, they went ahead and published the credit rates and fees for all major banks in the country. Right. And what's interesting, something I learned from this recent publication, is that there's something called, of course, FYI, I don't advise people to, particularly if you're American, right, to bother with the Haitian banking system. Now, of course, you got to open up a bank account. You have to do certain things to operate in the country, obviously. But when I talk about credit, getting loans, if I were you, I always advise folks work on your credit FICO score in America, and then use instruments in America to fund your activities in Haiti, because the interest rates from these banks, these financial institutions, are insane. I'm talking, for example, if you were to get an auto loan in Haiti, you'd be looking at somewhere around 30% interest APR, which is madness. Remember, in America, you can get a brand new vehicle for 3%, maybe, right? Most places are still doing 0%, 1% interest rates, right? So to say right now that I'm gonna have to pay 30% on auto loan, you're out your mind, and that's an auto loan that has collateral, right? There's a reason why Haitian banks are the most profitable banks in all the Caribbean, right? That's a fact. Forget whatever you're hearing about Haiti being the poorest. The Haitian banks are the most profitable in the Caribbean. Think about that, right? And that's one of the reasons why. So that said, I didn't know that apparently when you're given credit in Haiti, when you're getting credit in Haiti. Well, first off, by the way, let me just finish that idea. Number one, most banks wouldn't even allow you to file for credit because there is no way for Haitian diaspora really to port into the Haitian banking system, FYI. But even if we could, I'd advise you not to because of what I just described. Okay, let's move back to the news story. Credit application fees, right? Which is interesting. Like literally, if the bank gave you $10,000 credit limit, this is before the annual fee. This doesn't even include the annual fee. They will charge you a credit application fee equal to 2 to 4% of the value of your total budget or the limit, your credit limit, right? So if you had $10,000, a $10,000 cap, let's say 4% of that would be about $400. Oh, let me do the math again. Let me see something. You got $10,000 limit, 4%. Oh, that's from Tangley. Excuse him. It's $400. That'll be a $400 fee. Before you do anything, the bank will charge you $400 to give you a $10,000 max credit card. Goodness gracious. And that's on top of annual fees that range from anywhere from $20 to $80, right? So that's all that was published this week on the BRH, right? And again, very interesting to see the sort of what a lot of these banks are able to do. Again, none of this is regulated per se, but nonetheless, the central bank is trying to improve the transparency of how Haitian banks are operating. In addition, they've released a lot of other pieces of information, including fees to opening just a regular account, fees to closing an account, fees for inactivity. A lot of different stuff has been published. Again, you can see all those fees on the BRH website, BRH Haiti. Just Google that. It will take you straight to the BRH website. Very interesting. Anyone who's looking to do anything in Haiti, I really would advise you to take a look at that website. And that's really probably one of our better sources for information for what is going on economically in the country. They're doing a very great job, right? So do check out BRH Haiti. We got Gardens Pierre. Good to see you, Gardens Pierre. Good to see you. Good to see you. Now you're late because I talked about that. I talked about what's going on with Haiti and myself. I don't know if you had a chance. I dare a lot of folks to. Well, maybe the prices have decreased now. We're on the 5th of July, but at the time when I purchased my plane ticket a week and a half ago, the prices for this week in Haiti they were looking at $500. $500 for one way, not two ways. From one way out of Fort Lauderdale and Miami, they're looking for one way $500, right? And that's Spirit, that's JetBlue, Eastern Airways. They're all charging $500 one way to re-enter the country. So, I don't have that sort of money just to kind of throw out the window like that. So I've waited to this week, the second week of July. The prices return to normal for a one-way flight out of the country, into the country. And so I will be in country again this week. And again, that's one reason why we will not have a show next week. Next Sunday, there will not be a Haiti Biz News show because I will be in country catching up on a lot of stuff. So I am not going to have time to do our Haiti Biz News show. So again, I remind you again, there will not be a Haiti Biz News show next week, but we'll be back the following week and we'll catch up on 2 weeks worth of information, right? I'm not going to skip over the week that we're going to miss. We're going to do 2 weeks worth of news. So don't you worry about that. You guys will get your update. Don't you worry, right? Lone Wolf says, yes, they are profitable, but Haitian banks happen to be the smallest in the Western Hemisphere. With that level of interest in car loans, no wonder GDP is 5 times less than the Dominican Republic. What's Milton saying? TK, yo, shit. Okay, there you go. There we go. TK, yo, shit. You're absolutely right, Milton. You're absolutely right. Lone Wolf says, yeah, so that's absolutely, our capitalization, the amount of capital that Haitian banks have, to be clear, they are very small, right? But nonetheless, for that a little bit of money, their profit margins are incredible, right? So, but again, that's when you have interest rates that high, you're right. How can Banks are very important lubricators, fuel sources for economic activity. And when you're talking about 30% interest for a car, right? And I'm not even talking about business loans. I'm not talking about mortgages, right? I mean, those, when we're talking about those things that themselves in America usually have high interest rates, right? I mean, it's to the point where the strategy for most people, they don't do mortgages, right? What they do is they'll do construction loans, just a bridge for like a month or two while they're waiting for some money to come in, right? Because that's really all you can afford, right? Because interest rates are so high for any loan. It becomes almost as if, I know those in America can understand check cashing, those payday loans, how those payday loans are, those insane high rates of interest that if you don't pay that off in a month or two, you're just going to be drowning in interest and debt and fees. That's kind of how the Haitian bank system operates, right? And so that's why you're encouraged to do very, 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 very short-term loans if you're a business or in the country, just because there isn't any real effective way, right? And on the flip side too, my heart does go out to these banks, believe it or not, because understand, there isn't a FICO score system in Haiti, right? There isn't. The legal system doesn't really allow you to put liens on property, right? If it's a car, you can come take the loan property back, but if it's a business, you can't really. I mean, you could. Don't get me wrong. For construction and for property, banks can and banks have taken the property from owners, right? So they're not totally left holding the bag, but still, the legal system is very immature and doesn't allow for many other alternatives for these banks, except for high interest rates to make up for the percentage of people who don't pay, right? So I get it. I'm not trying to make anybody into a bad guy here, but nonetheless, the result of such high interest rates is lower economic activity, right? Let's look at the results. The results are lower economic activity for native Haitians. As American, Haitian American, I can get loans from other places much quicker, much easily, thankfully, because of, I've taken care of my credit score, right? And that's why I always advise other Haitians to do, that's one of the most common questions. Chris, I'm trying to get a loan from a bank in Haiti. I say, yo, stop right there. Don't do it. Use other systems, especially if you're a citizen or resident of America or Canada. We got Mark Kinley Guerriere. Mark Kinley, good to see you. Good morning. Spirit was 119 for one way. That is correct. That is what it is now, right? But that first week, it wasn't 119, my friend. Believe me, it was pushing closer to $400+. That is true, right? James Pierre Lewis says, "What's up? How's your boy? How's your boy James? New York City in the house. Holla." Good to see you, James. Happy to have you in the chat today. Right? Lone Wolf says the banks are crushing the economy to a point it's impossible for entrepreneurs and small businesses to scale. Where are the economists advising government officials? You're absolutely right. Right? There is a very big gap for businesses and entrepreneurs. In most countries, it's pretty big, but in Haiti, it's crippling. So I totally agree with you, Lone Wolf. Very, very true. Very, very true. Right. So let's keep it moving. Next news story has to do with the prison release. Remember last week we were very happy to report that the government was releasing a lot of prisoners who were sitting in jail for. Remember to understand. First thing folks hear, you're releasing criminals. Wait a minute. Remember, one of the biggest humanitarian crisis that exists in the country is the fact that you have Haitians. Oh, by the way, my IG is about to be cut off. I will reboot it, right? But of course, if you guys want an uninterrupted stream, do watch YouTube or Facebook. Seejeanty, we're on here, okay? And one of the biggest issues that the Haitian prison system has is that almost 80 to 90%. Let's say 80% of the folks sitting in jail have not seen a judge, have not had their day in court. Right? They've been, unfortunately, just sitting in jail for as long as there's people who've been there for 3+ years. 3+ years have not seen a judge, have not had their case listened to. It's a tremendous crime. It is a crime, it's genuine crime against humanity, right? And so, on top of that, given that the COVID has been spreading tremendously, COVID, positive, there's we reported a while back 10 prisoners, 16 prisoners were tested, 11 came back positive, right? 16 prisoners were tested, 11 came back positive. A tremendous problem, right? And so, surprisingly, President Moise stepped up, listened to a lot of people who brought that to his attention, and actually made it a decree to pardon people who fit a certain criteria. Let's talk about what that criteria was. I do have those notes pulled up. I do have those notes pulled up here, right? And a big amount, and for example, folks who are supposed to serve 60% of their sentence were pardoned. Those who were in pretrial detention for 5 years and had never seen a judge or court for crimes other than kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, trafficking of people or drugs would also be released. Those who minors would be released right away in detention. Minor offenses, and folks who are there for minor offenses beyond 6 months will also be released, right? Those who are sitting for in 1 year prior detention for criminal offenses for potentially a year would be released. So looking at the criteria was very sensible, right? Very sensible criteria. But even then, only about 400 people were going to be released, when really the right number to really have made a dent in the amount of people. Remember, there's around 11 to 12,000 prisoners right now in Haiti, and the facilities are really made for half of that, right? And so to really have impacted, we needed to see numbers closer to about 5,000 people, right? A lot of organizations say that's the right number, given again, I just told you, 80% of people are sitting in jail for 3 to 5 years, never seen a judge, right? But now there's been quite a bit of controversy. The first controversy is that we had government commissioners releasing people who didn't fit that criteria. First off, like literally releasing people who were just recently convicted, who just started serving their terms, maybe a couple months into their terms. Government commissioners out in Quarabuque and Seejeanty were releasing people who were ineligible. They say at least 10 people were released, and they had no business being released. They were not on the official 400, or so people who Jovenel Moise, I almost said King Moise. I'm trying to be a little more respectful because he is doing some things that I like. President Moise has been, and so at least 10 ineligible folks have been released, and those government commissioners have been at least put on leave, technically fired, heavily sanctioned, on leave without pay, but I believe they may have gone far, been fired for their role in releasing 10 ineligible convicts. That's number one, right? Number two, the Miami Herald has come out with a very damning piece saying that there's been a lot of, first off, understand the Minister of Justice was not consulted, right? So, President Moise said, okay, here's the conditions for release. And then someone gave him a list of 400 people who fit that criteria, but it wasn't the Minister of Justice. It wasn't the anyone from the penitentiary either. And the Miami Herald spoken to both departments, and they said that list didn't come from them. In fact, they heard that piece of information like everyone else. They heard it on the news during a press release. That's how they heard it, right? And a lot of the folks, were just as surprised, because the way it should have happened was, okay, here's the criteria. Minister of Justice, hey, find me the people who fit this criteria, and a review should happen, right? And then President Moise provides the pardon. All those steps were skipped, and it was just an instant pardon, right? And of course, the way it was presented in the Miami Herald, it was presented in a way that made it seem as if it was just a random assortment. There were criteria. It wasn't necessarily Miami Herald. Does pretty good journalism, but they seem to be pretty biased over salacious titles and salacious presentation of facts and figures. You always have to read Miami Herald with a grain of analysis, trying to see, okay, what are the real facts here outside of stuff to sell papers, right? That's just my personal piece of it, right? And so that is sort of the news story. But the big one here, the big thing too that Miami Herald revealed is that part of the new penal code, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, is that folks with criminal records can run for office. And that's a problem, right? Folks with criminal records can run for office. Remember, Haiti has a tremendous problem right now with senatorial immunity, right? In fact, right now, one of the strategies of criminals who are on the cusp of being arrested for criminality or being under investigation, they run for office, right? And if they could win, then for the entire 6 years or 4 years that they're in office, they can't be touched. Right? Remember, we saw 2 years ago a senator literally, and I've talked about this even before, that the senator could pull out their gun, shoot, and nothing happened. It literally happened. We had a senator literally pull out their gun, spray the air, hit a journalist, but there was nothing that could be done to that senator. Right? I mean, don't get me wrong, there are processes in place to be fair for a senator or a deputy to be processed and have their immunity lifted. Other senators would have to vote to get that lifted, right? And because there hasn't been a functioning parliament in 3-4 years now, that certainly has not happened, right? And would not happen in those cases, right? And so the fact that someone with a criminal record could run for office, right, in this new decree, for sure. I mean, it was always a gray area involved, but now it's law now that a criminal could run for office and then enjoy 6 to 4 years of legal immunity that you can't touch a particular senator, right? It's a problem. It is a problem, right? And so all that came out in this recent article from Miami Herald. Immediately, the Prime Minister's youth has suspended the pardon, so there is nobody going anywhere, right? A proper investigation, a proper procedural process is now in place to review the folks who are being pardoned, to involve the Minister of Justice, to ensure that the folks who are actually fitting the criteria are being released, right? And so that, we had a great news report last week, how quickly in Haiti 1 week can change things. And so that's where we are right now with that particular news story. Prison release, c'est un gagot, c'est désordre, but I think folks who follow, the Haiti, Haitian government activities aren't surprised, right? So we'll keep an eye on this, see how things shape up and see if they do follow, because understand something, folks, there needs to be early release. I mean, every other country has done it, just to be clear, United States, Canada, they've done it. It needs to happen in Haiti too, because the Haitian prison system is extremely overpopulated. Again, just do a Google search, a YouTube search, Haitian prison system, and you see the inhumane conditions that Haitians are living in. I mean, literally within a single prison cell made for 2 people, you have 20 people in the cell. I'm not kidding. I'm not being hyperbolic. This is fact, right? So we're gonna end that news story. Okay. Next news story has to do with the new penal code. This is massive. This should be on every headline and every newspaper, on every, the Union Suite should be talking about this, right? The Haitian Americans should be talking about this. I mean, this should be on every news feed where Haitian Americans consume their media, but I haven't seen this anywhere. This is massive. Here's what's going on. The entire penal system. What is the penal system, by the way? It is literally the rules and regulation related to criminality and justice in the country has been changed from the ground up. What existed from the last time, 1863, is when the current system of criminality and justice have existed. is being thrown out. In 24 months, officially, we're going to have a brand new system, right? Now, to be fair, how did he just out of nowhere, does he wake up and he just, well, there's been a commission since 2009 working, right? And they've came up over these many years with how to modernize the Haitian legal system, has come up with a way to modernize the Haitian legal system, and over 10,036 articles, right? And this has just kind of been sitting with Parliament. Parliament should have voted this in many months, many years ago. Obviously, we don't have a functioning Parliament, even though we have a parliamentary constitution. Parliament has more power than the president, but they sit and blame the president for not functioning. Now, right now, since there's no Parliament and the president is able to function by decree, he is doing the Parliament's work, and he's passed this just incredibly ground-shaking new regulation. Let's get into the meat and sauce, meat and potatoes, right, of it, right? So first off, right, it makes prosecuting and sanctioning legal entities easier, right? For the law, 1836, there really wasn't a way to take a legal entity, SA, to court and sanction them for activities that damage the environment, damage people, damage property. All right. The new penal code allows entities to be able to be taken to court, right, and have sanctions placed against them, which is a big deal, because before, rich and wealthy would hide behind their entities and nothing could be done to them, right? So that has changed, and that's a big deal, right? Additionally, there's alternatives to prison sentences, right? Probation is something didn't exist in Haiti. Probation didn't exist in Haiti, right? Probation is now a thing. Suspension of driver license as a potential recourse. Before, that wasn't, they take your license, right? Of those who know how it works in Haiti, you say if you had a ticket, they take your license, and then of course you have a little piece of paper that says, hey, the license has been taken, and you have a ticket, and you have to go to the local precinct, pay your fee, and then get your driver's license back. But now in court, as a potential punishment, you can have a suspension of your driver's license, right, for some amount of time, right? The professional activity can be prohibited. Imagine a lawyer, a doctor, something does malfeasance, right? You can have your license to function profession in the country prohibited for a certain amount of time. That is new. That didn't exist before, right? You can be banned to appear in certain places, right? If you're in effect, there's a word for it that we're more familiar with. That word is escaping me. Say if someone you don't want to be near someone, there's a way for. Let me see. Okay, Johnny Celestin's dropped something there, but I don't quite. I guess he's pressed enter a little too soon, but he's done it. Wherever Johnny's going with this, he's done it. He's propagated it, and now it's a question of. Now there is some components that the Parliament still needs to ratify, which we're going to get into, but he's done it. It's done. So now we'll see if whenever Parliament gets elected, what they decide to do with this proper promulgation, right? But it's done. Let's be clear. So in addition, there's been community service. Community service is something now that exists, right? Additionally, mobile electronic surveillance is something that exists now, right? And for example, no more, prison for ticketing, right? There was prior to that, for the folks who didn't pay tickets, they could go to jail, right? So that also has changed. New offenses. There's no offenses, for example. There's offenses for hazing. Hazing is now something that has statutes and articles around it. And someone could potentially go to jail for hazing. Abortion, I know this is going to perk the ears of a lot of people. Something a lot of folks feel strongly about. So abortion is now punishable if not done with the free and informed consent of a pregnant woman, right? Abortion is punishable if not done with the free and informed consent of a pregnant woman. What does that mean? As you know, you can imagine a young girl, 18, 19, 17, gets pregnant, right? The mom or dad says, you're not going to keep that, right? You're going to go, you have to get an abortion, right? That is legal, right? That is something that someone cannot be forced necessarily to go do, right? The person, the woman, the pregnant woman themselves can decide, right? But that's something that is now illegal, right? Establishment of an attorney general, that is also a new part of the penal code. And in 13 years, we have as the legal age of adulthood, right? So a lot of the penal, what's the word I'm looking for? Terms, sentencing, etc. Right? 13 years is the delineation between a minor and an adult. Now, that is something I'm not too sure how I feel about. I'm not sure someone who's 13 who's now 14 or 15 should be tried as an adult, right? I'm not too sure how I feel about that, but nonetheless, that is what the new rules and regs are saying. And additionally, the cost of living adjustments, fines are going to be indexed to inflation, right? So automatically, right? So there are, the moment inflation gets passed around 10%, then the Minister of Justice has the authority to, in effect, change that those court fees associated with, right? So again, massive change in the penal code system. And this is on the heels of other massive decrees that President Moise has done. I remember we talked about 2 weeks ago, he completely overhauled a massive component of the commercial code, adding language related to rentals, not only rentals for property, but also rentals as it relates to items, right? The legal system had a big hole in the center as it relates to that component of it, which is a big deal, not only for land investment, but also businesses being able to rent and potentially have recourse if terms aren't followed, right? So that's a very big deal, right? And this follows up what has to happen next is what, for the next 2 years, you have 24 months of this. The Minister of Justice has to train magistrates, judges, clerks, bailiffs, police, right? In addition, they have to actually structure the alternative sentencing and probation system. That's something now the Minister of Justice has to now set up, right? How folks to follow up on community service, folks to follow up, probation officers, in effect, follow up and set up probation officers to follow up with folks who are on probation, right? So there's an entire system. I mean, this is a massive overhaul, right? And of course, there's a big part of it where Parliament must approve a good amount of this now, which is perplexing, right? Because this penal code also requires, for example, Parliament must approve the public prosecution restriction, right? They have to approve laws specific to judicial reorganization. They have to approve and define legal assistance. They have to also approve and better define reorganization and the modernization of the registrars of the court and tribunals. And all of that, this needs to be done within 24 months. And as we know, there isn't elections planned until 2022, right? And as we know, the parliament in Haiti is the most dysfunctional entity that exists on the planet, right? And so I'm not too sure how this is going to be rectified. And the reality is we're going to be running a playbook that is going to be half complete for a long time. So these books will be in place, but just like, for example, there is rules in place that says I myself, as a Haitian American, I have the capacity to, for example, Haitians who are born in another country, if your parents are Haitian, your mom or dad, you are a Haitian citizen, and you thus have the rights to function in the country fully. That's what the law says. But Parliament still has not pass laws to how to apply that, how to procedurally. If I was born in America, luckily I was born in Haiti, but if I was born in America, how exactly do you show that? Okay, here's a Haitian birth certificate of my mom. Here's my American birth certificate. Look, the names match. Can I be registered on the Extrate Archive? Right? That's how it should work. That law doesn't exist. There isn't really a way to apply the reality of that law today. There's a problem, and so so the law is sort of half done, right? And this is what I suspect is going to happen with the penal code, right? And as always, the new parliament's going to come in. They're going to dig in. They're going to, there's no such thing as partisan in the Haitian political system. It's 1 degree away from anarchism, right? It's either my way or nothing happens, right? That's a news story. That's a news story, right? And of course, a very big piece of this too was the fact that for over 4 weeks now, the judges and magistrates are on strike. And so that's a big thing. As I was reading this news story, I'm like, okay, this is great, but how exactly are folks even supposed to move forward, given that judges have been on strike because of they were in disagreement with how little money they were allocated in the budget, right? They've been on strike for going on 4 weeks, but just earlier this week, right before this news was released in the Moniteur, a peace agreement, a peace accord was signed where the judges are going to be returning back to work this week with the agreement that this is something promised before, but they've promised that the budget will reflect their demands next fiscal quarter. In addition, they've been given immediate recourse. For example, they've been given their debit and fuel cards have been upped, by a significant amount immediately, and also they've been promised too that their mandates will be renewed. We have a renewed mandate starting fresh. Whether or not this is legal or not, it isn't. I can almost assure you it's not. But nonetheless, that is what has been promised, and what's going to allow them to get back to doing their jobs, right? So again, they've been promised a revision in their budget as a percentage, because again, this budget only allocated 0.8% of the entire national budget towards the judiciary system, which is problematic and very small. So more, this is supposed to be more, a higher percentage. In addition, renewed mandate, and also cost of living assistance, for example, debit cards and fuel cards for food and just day-to-day expenses related to doing their work is going to have an immediate upward revision, and that has been enough to get them to court, out of the streets and protesting. In cities. And of course, the final piece of news too, there's a lot of cities right now without mayors. Port-au-Prince, Quadra-Bouquet, St. Mark. So again, not only do we have a parliament, for a while there we didn't really have a functioning magistrate or judiciary. But now a lot of major cities are sitting without executive administration for their cities. And again, Port-au-Prince, Quadra-Bouquet, we're talking about big cities that effectively do not have a mayor and will not have a mayor for at least another year and a half when elections are redone later next year, right? And then, of course, they can actually take their office and take their posts February 2022, right? So interesting situation. Let's deep dive into the chat and see what folks are saying. Johnny said this thing coming up saying, so the president cannot under circumstances do parliament's work. In fact, this is expressly prohibited in the Constitution. A decree cannot override existing laws, which he is doing. One cannot, on the one hand, like what the president is doing, be for democracy. The choices are clear. One cannot choose to be on one side or the other. Fair enough, Johnny. I hear you, and I appreciate the comment. Now, that said, here's why I disagree with you. I think for a long time, a big part of government philosophy, right? The apparatus that a lot of folks have been running under, right? Which I've, to be quite frank, for a big chunk of it, disagree with, right? Which is when one branch of government fails, and doesn't operate, there needs to be a practicality and capacity of another branch to pick up the pace or pick up the work. I know for a long time, rightly or wrongly, the biggest thing we hear from many of us in the Haitian community is what we hope for one day we have the right leadership to force Haiti into modernity and move Haiti the direction where it needs to go to. Now, the most common thing I hear, unfortunately, is the need, the desire for a dictator, right? Which, of course, to me is the most insane thing when you really look at the travesty and the amount of murder that Duvalier, for example, committed. You can, on one hand, just like you expressed, want a country to move forward, but then at the same time applaud the amount of heinous homicidal criminality that a dictator did, right? But in this situation right here, and it goes to those who follow me for a very long time here on Haiti Biz News, Seejeanty, you know very much how I feel very strongly against the current structure of the politics of the country. That's one reason why I don't try to do my best to avoid speaking of it. I get very emotional as it relates to how we have a parliamentary democracy. All power lies in Parliament, right? But yet Parliament does no work. Parliament passes no laws within the past 5 years, right? 5 years prior, I guess we're on 6 years. Parliament came up with 5 bills, passed only 5 bills. One of the bills was a bill forced upon them by the United States government, that would basically had said our financial system would have been outside of the world's financial system if we didn't pass certain anti-money laundering laws. And even that, it took Parliament an emergency session, right? They couldn't pass within their usual window. There was still that, the near anarchist way of how Parliament does things. Had to go to emergency session. It took Matali, who was running things, literally to basically sit and preside over a parliamentary session to force the anti-money laundering law that would keep Haiti's banking system a part of the world's banking system. That's what it takes. When the U.S. forcing its entire weight for Haiti to pass laws, still Parliament doesn't do this job. And very bizarrely, right, during Pays Loc, the one thing that the Parliament passed was a law saying that compa is a national item. It's a national legacy item, and to put funding towards helping compa artists professionals, have a means to live, right? And those out of 5. Those were 2 things that were passed. The other 3 things happened so many years ago. I don't even, right? So when you have things sitting in Parliament, like, for example, the Haitian laws related to how someone who was born in Haiti, as I just described, born out of Haiti, could become a citizen, sitting on the books, unpassed. When you have decrees bills that are sitting with Parliament, that could modernize the commercial code as relates to, for example, rentals, right, that need to be passed, aren't passed. When you have bills like this one here that modernizes and puts modern practices into effect, that have been sitting with Parliament for years. Again, this is a commission that started in 2009, right, sitting for years, and Parliament refuses to do their job, right? No matter how you feel, and I know a lot of folks feel very strongly about, whoever president's in. No president's ever good enough for anyone, right? You can argue and say what he's doing is. I mean, listen. The fact that he has Prime Minister Jute in place right now, it's unconstitutional, right? Right. The fact that he's going to be sitting to 2022, right? And given that most presidencies follow not necessarily the 60-month. Okay, I start in 60 months, and 60 months later I follow. I end. Most presidents in the past have said, no, well, this is the window. This is when I should have started, and this is when I'm gonna end it. Right? We get it. The guy is doing a lot of things that are unconstitutional. This is where we are. This is where we are. Right? This is where we are. This is where we are. Right? Do I agree with it? If I were to sit and be unpragmatic and sit in a situation where things have to be a certain way and can only be that way, right? I would be equally expressing disfavor, right? But it's much more important to me, right, that Haiti, however Haiti decides to do it, moves into 2020, right? So Haitian society as a whole can improve and be in a better situation. That Haitian society as a whole has a better legal environment, right, to process. And me as a business person, it's much more important for me to know that we're operating in a country where laws and rules reflect the reality of how things operate in 2020, right? And the dance that we do, that we know, John, let's be 100% honest, right? Parliament doesn't do its job. Parliament doesn't do its job. Start right there. Start right there. Parliament doesn't do its job. So are we supposed to sit in a constitution where Parliament doesn't do its job and there aren't things that need to be passed, that sit there? I know it's hard. It's a hard argument I'm saying. It's an argument that I don't even like making. I'll just be clear. I don't like even making this argument. Let's be very clear. Right? But looking at the facts of what's being done, I'm for it. Looking at what's being passed, I'm for it. Right? Let me read. Let me continue. Get back in the chat. We're in a controversial section, right? And that's why we're here. We're here to have that conversation, right? Lionel Pierre is praising President Moise. Richard S. says, it's crazy that in 2020, the penal code is being modernized, shows just how little work was being done, right? Thank you, Richard. Bounce Bougie follows up, so that's crazy. Marie Haywood says, finally, Haiti has a president trying to put rules and regulation. Hope he succeeds. So far, we have folks who are seeing it the way I'm seeing it, right? But let's see. Johnny's back. Let's see what Johnny says. All right, so let's see. Johnny says, fair enough about Parliament, but the president controlled Parliament and used Parliament to push out the prime ministers he did not want. The idea that because Parliament has not done its work, then we throw out the Constitution. We either have a Constitution or we don't. It cannot be applicable only when it serves our purpose. Fair enough, John. Fair enough. I hear you. And that is one thing that so understand, right? You're more in the weeds in how things work politically than I am. By the way, Johnny Celestin, that one reason why I respect Johnny's input so much, he actually worked as a consultant under Prime Minister, what's that guy's name? Worked under Motley, bald-headed guy. Help me out here. Prime Minister, I have to tell you guys the name. Prime Minister on the tip of my tongue. Let me cheat, see if I know who's Lamotte. There you go, Lamotte. Thank you, Johnny. Lamotte. He was a consultant with Lamotte. So Johnny is someone who, unlike a lot of people, has very close understanding of how real Haitian politics works. That's why I do value his opinion very much, right? So as it relates to that, is Piache Tika really a political party, right? Right? What is Piache Tika? Other than that, we know that Piache Tika is very right-leaning. It's a right-leaning organization, right? It's not leftist. It's certainly rightist, probably mid to almost far right in its thinking, particularly policy-wise, right? and how it approaches the economy and other things, right? Beyond that, this isn't PHTK is not family Lavalas, right? PHTK isn't ED, right? PHTK isn't Petit Dessalines, right? PHTK is not a organization with specific hardline one lane doctrines that I'm aware of. To me, PHTK is nothing but a couple guys who are like, well, I guess the president's a particular party. I guess we'll go ahead and we'll just say we're PHTK and just roll with it for now, right? That's how I view PHTK. PHTK isn't necessarily a genuine political party, right? Just a bunch of guys who are like, oh, I guess we'll go with the flow. We'll try to cash in on PHTK, on this group that this president has just formed, because as you know, the larger percentage that a political party has in Haiti, the more money they receive. Folks, surprising, a lot of folks may not know this, but Haiti actually provides payment to political parties so they can hold elections and stuff and operate directly from the government's coffers. It's actually a pretty common thing, apparently, in developing countries, right? And that is the play, right? And so when you say that they hold Congress, it's almost saying Democrats hold on to, this is what Democrats in America, right? Democrats hold office when Democrats are probably the most inconsistent ideological group there is. You have the Blue Dogs, you have the NR, the Sanders camp, right? You have the extreme right wing. You have the centrists, the central leaning Democrats who are actually Democrats elected in red states, right? So they have to really adhere to a lot of the doctrines of conservatism, despite saying that they're Democrats, right? There isn't a single patchwork of PHTK, right? And so just because they held office doesn't necessarily mean that there was going to have any chance of moving stuff forward, given that we know that Haitian politicians are 1 degree removed from anarchists, right? Let me dissect the other idea that he had there. Throw away, the throwing away the Constitution. I just when I hear that, I just have to go back to what has Parliament done when they had power, right? They. Yeah, but again, to be clear, guys, it's a very complicated situation in Haiti. There isn't a specific way forward in terms of how we talk about these things. But the reality of where we are right now, we have a president who is ruling unconstitutionally. Let's be clear. The fact that he is in a position right now, he has not fulfilled his requirement per the Constitution to immediately hold elections, right? We are in an area right now where he's running unconstitutionally. Now that we're here, let's evaluate things per what he's doing. And per what he's doing, I'm okay with it. He's modernizing the legal environment. He's passing bills that were sitting with Parliament for years that needed to be passed, right? I'm for it, right? And certainly, yes, we do need to get back to operating within the boundaries of a constitution, right? But for that to happen, we need a parliament that has senators and deputies that understand the responsibilities and operate under those responsibilities. We don't have that. This is top in the comments to see what folks are saying. Blue Bar 2018 says, I heard they also decreased the age of consent to 15. Something about legalizing some prostitution. Interesting, right? It's an article that has over 10,036 articles, right? Sorry, 1,036 articles. Very meaty, a lot of information. I mean, literally, you're redoing the Constitution. Talk about how abortion has been changed as well in there, right? So let's not say we hear. Certainly, look out for those who make sure to follow Seejeanty on Facebook, right? The Seejeanty page. I'm going to publish after this stream's over later today. I'm going to publish the full read devised article on there, and I want folks to read it. If folks can, it's gonna be in French, of course, but sometimes the best way to really understand what's been done is just to read what's been done, right? So don't go by what you heard, go by what you read, Blue Bear. And so look out for it. I will be publishing it on my Facebook page, Seejeanty. Okay, thanks. Amari Charles says, hopefully they will be done correctly, executed correctly for the benefit of the people, right? Lone Wolf says, personally, I think more power needs to be given to the executive over the economy, financial systems, and in construction. The good for nothing is not in the business of building up the country, right? The last thing we need in Haiti is a dictatorship. And Nina Dor says, hi, Jency, can you like your show? Email me during Gmail to share some info that you might need. I mean, my info is in the comments. So wherever you may have for me, Nina Dor, do send it to me, right? My email is in the comments, Seejeanty at High Pro Solutions, right? Johnny Selson says, short-term win are short-lived. I hear you. I hear you, Johnny. I hear you. But, you know, are these changes short-term? I don't know. I mean, the only way they're not short-term is if Parliament, when elected, reverses this by actually doing their jobs. And I don't think Parliament's going to just wake up and start doing their jobs. All right. Teddy Comment says, I see it the way you see it as well. The Parliament Teddy saying this because it does not represent the people. They brought their election. Moise is at least thinking of his legacy, right? Teddy agrees with me. Mark and Lee follows up, says we need 10 years progressive dictatorship, just like Singapore, as well as Rwanda. I disagree with that. I am not for dictatorships. I think the human condition, I always thought it was unique to Haitians that we always, so many of us want a dictator. But then when you understand, you know, the Enlightenment, you know, the same Enlightenment that brought in the French Revolution, you know, you actually dig into what the Enlightenment meant. Enlightenment really meant not enlightenment for the people, but enlightenment for a dictator, right? The Enlightenment was really about how do we get an enlightened dictator to force over the good for the people, despite the fact that we give that person all power to do whatever they want, right? So I think it's been part of the condition of people, man, for a long time. I mean, you go back as far as Aristotle, right? Go back as far as Aristotle and right, and other very important Greek philosophers, and you understand that even then, even under the books that was written, it was always about getting the right dictator in place, getting the right king in place to help move people forward, right? So I get it. It's not a uniquely Haitian thing. I mentioned all this just to say it's not a uniquely Haitian thing to want just that one strong person to push things over. But understand, power corrupts, and total power corrupts totally, right? And there has rarely been instances when you give someone total power that it doesn't become a short-term gain, right? So great, during that particular reign of someone who is progressively minded, for example, a Rwanda extreme example right now. I'm concerned for Rwanda after their current president dies. You know, when you build up that precedent of one person having that much power, you know, how sustainable it is next generation when the next person comes into play who doesn't think that way, right? When you don't have proper checks and balances in place. Look, listen, one reason why Trump has not totally ran this country into the wall is because America has incredible institutions that operate independently of whatever the whims of the president is, right? And is that robustness in governance that's allowed America, despite being run by Trump, right, has not totally slipped. I mean, we're getting pretty close to anarchy in America, but it has not totally slipped into, you know, what we know it could be very, very easily, right? because we have strong institutions, right? And so I would never, ever, and I really wish more Haitians would not go into that direction of, oh, we just need a dictator to step in. We need a Jesus Christ figure to come in and save us from ourselves. We need to be our own saviors. We need to hold parliamentarians accountable. They need to do their jobs, right? And instead of everyone in a barbershop saying, I want to be president, we need more Haitians across the world to say, hey, when I see a senator or a deputy, I'm going to get in their face and I'm going to say, hey, man, you need to do your job. You need to pass bills. You need to push legislation across to help the people of Haiti. Don't just sit here and blame the president when the Constitution gives you all the power, right? Thank you, Mark Henley. Appreciate it. Wansley Pierre says, when will people with double nationality run for office? That is not legally possible. Nina Dore follows up. Lone Wolf says, I think a degree in political science should be a prerequisite for any public office in Haiti. You know what? I'm gonna go one step before that, right? Lone Wolf, how about we make it a legal requirement that you know how to read? You think I'm being funny, but I'm serious. There has been, and there will be senators and deputies who get elected who cannot read. It's a fact. There's senators in this past cycle, not just one, senators with an S, that cannot read. They are illiterate, yet they hold office and power in Parliament. Right. So let's go to the very basics, Lone Wolf. How about we ensure that a condition of holding office in Haiti is that you can at least read. I laugh, but it's tears. It's tears of sadness of how far Haiti needs to go. All right. Michael Jr. as well says, sending money through PayPal. Appreciate it, brother. I will confirm that and we'll give you a shout out next week. Certainly appreciate it. Eddie Jean follows up. My brother telling me they added it's the marriage. Is that true? Miss have to show. Here's what I'm gonna do. Instead of moving back to here, he said, she said, I'm going to drop the new penal code into Seejeanty. If you're not following on Seejeanty Facebook, do it. And also I'll try to drop it on Twitter as well. I'm going to drop the entire new article on there. I want you guys to go read it. Right? Go read it and know for a fact for yourselves what's in there, what isn't. Right? Okay? I want to participate. He says, I grabbed some of the bigger items that for sure are progressively minded, but a lot of these other things, he says, I want you guys to go read it. And then débat fini. Okay? Butaville official says the problem is that we're submitting to politics in the first place. Nothing has worked. It's time to build a new formal organization based on truth and only truth. Thanks for that perspective. I disagree. We are in a time. I disagree too. We are in a time of world peace. Okay. Dictator Mari Haywood says dictatorship is the last thing Ireland needs. I certainly agree with you. Let's see, where are we? Okay, here we go. Buttville says European state of mind. Negmaron says Rwanda Kagame has been ruling for far too long. Lone Wolf says Singapore doesn't have dictatorships. They have an incredible enlightened single party political system rooted in rule of law, not based on a single person. So that's how it is today, right? But when people cite Singapore, they cite specifically when there was a dictator for a very long time. Lone Wolf, just to be clear. Samuel Paul provides his comments. Startup Life saying it's true. There are senators who cannot read. It's true. MJ Blaze says, we got to make Haitian Creole the official language. I agree with you, right? Everything should be promulgated in 2 languages. Creole, number 1, and I guess French, but honestly, let me become president or dictator. I'm trusting we have 2 languages, Creole and English. Epifini. But in any case, Nazir Pierre says it's important in the new constitution that they make it a treasonable act for high-paid public officials in Haiti to send their families to live abroad. I see why you would say that. I see why you would say that, right? I see why you would say that. Right? Certainly incentivizing people who are running the country to have their families in the country they're running would certainly incentivize them to do the right thing, right? And not just play games and do these anarchist actions, right? But instead be pragmatic and move the country forward because they know their wives and kids are in the country directly being affected. I think you're onto something, Nazir. Thanks for that idea. You're onto something. Rich T says the scary thing about Rwanda is their looming threat of tribal conflict. I think when Kagame leaves office, the Hutsis and Tutsi situation will resurface. I don't know. But certainly, as I described, Kagame's doing some great work. Don't get me wrong, but I guess the biggest test of whether or not dictatorships work or not is what happens when Kagame, what happens next, right? So keep a very close eye on that, right? And that will tell you everything why dictatorships don't work. You'll see what I mean. Wait and see. You'll see what I mean. Richard S. says we have to stop looking for things from a Eurocentric lens. I think Haiti's case, we could use strong government because of the history of foreign interferences in our affairs. I'm not looking at it from a Eurocentric phase, my brother. I'm looking at it from a humanity. I know how human beings are, and I know what happens when you give one person too much power. And I also know what happens after that power is no longer in that person's hands, right? That's how I'm looking at it, right? But thanks for that input. Certainly appreciate it, Richard, right? So that was a lot of commentary. I appreciate that, guys. We really went into the deep well of politics there. Not something I particularly like to do. I hope you guys gained a little bit from that conversation we had just now. Again, to be clear, I'm very much about democracy, but I'm also pragmatic. I see what the difficulties of how Haiti has operated. I need Haiti to move forward. I'm willing to take forwardness in whatever way I can get it. If it is a temporary dictatorship, technically we're in that right now. King Moise is a dictator until 2022. Period. That's what we're in right now, today. He is an unconstitutional dictator doing whatever he wants, right? And remember, I said we're going to find out what type of person and leader he is right now. I can tell you, as an unconstitutional dictator, that's just I'm not for or against it. This is where we are, okay? And such as a dictator, we're going to see what type of dictator he is. And thus far, he's doing some good shit. Oh, excuse my French. He's doing some good stuff. Doing some stuff that's necessary, right? Yeah, and that's where I'm gonna move forward. Let me grab some last comments here. In the case of Kagame, has been in power for a long time, enough to create institutions that prepare the next leader after him. Perhaps, again, we'll see. We'll see markedly. We'll see. Per Wikipedia's report, Haiti's president making $4K US a year. Don't know if it's true. And then Father MJ Blaze says most of the population doesn't speak French. Everybody understands Creole. Corrupt politicians use French to fool the masses and lead them astray. That is correct. Foreign interference are at the bottom of the list of Haiti's problems. Not sure it would have even made the list. The United States would prefer a prosperous country to consume American goods, not less. That is one perspective, Lone Wolf. I don't necessarily disagree with that too much, right? So, all right, let's move forward. Great conversation, guys. Thank you. That's why I really enjoy, reading your comments on air. Lots of diverse views. I appreciate it. Always welcomed. It's not the one-sided show. Certainly appreciate a diverse set of opinions, right? So education, let's move on to the next subject, education. Schools are going to be relaunched August 10th, right? Now, I'm not sure how you guys feel about that. I mean, given that COVID still a thing, the fact that they're going to allow kids to go back to school. Remember, kids aren't tremendously at risk here, though kids have died, let's be clear. Kids have died of COVID, not tremendously at risk, but the risk that these kids have is that they can carry the disease and take it back to their elderly parents or caregivers, caretakers, everyone they pass. Kids tend to be a little more free in how they touch and not wanting to wear masks, not listening to proper guidance, right? And so I can tell you I'm not happy about that. Certainly wish we could continue to adhere to remote schooling in Haiti, but also I know the reality. The reality in Haiti is what? There isn't electricity. There isn't really there isn't the internet's very expensive. Though the government was working with Natcom to provide subsidized to free internet to kids, right? For the most part, internet isn't really wide. Even in the cases where kids were going to get that, the consistency of internet is very, very poor, right? It's the reality of it, right? So actually doing remote teaching is very difficult, even though they were doing things like doing national school programs, education programs on TV, for example. So a lot of different things that were being done that I'm in support of. Not they weren't ideal, but of course to have TV, number one, you have to be able to afford a TV, right? Number two, you need electricity to watch it. So again, doesn't really work. So I kind of understand the necessity to get these kids back to school, because that's only in reality, the only way to really get these kids to learn. But again, the risk, right? The fact that for sure, without a doubt, we're going to see a pretty big spike in COVID, right? It's problematic, right? Very mixed feelings. So the same sort of mixed feelings I have about the airports reopening. We got to get things going back together, but I also know there can be a lot of Haitians who don't unknowingly, sometimes even knowingly, come back into the country, and then while they're journeying back, they'll infect people. They won't adhere to social distancing. They'll go out, right? And so, mixed feelings. Global Partnership for Education, it's a U.S.-based NGO. We're providing the Ministry of Education $10 million to help with preparatory efforts for their reopening. So that is good news, needed news, to help the Ministry of Education with their efforts to help. And hopefully that money will go to actual schools and facilities and investments to assist with schools in their efforts to prepare for COVID, right? Our next bit of news relates to agriculture. In the area of Grand Rivière in du Nord, this is very near Oka. There's a 12.6 kilometer canal that is just about finished, just about complete. It has about 1 kilometer left to complete, right? And this is a big deal for the reason why. This is a irrigation canal that has not been in operation since 1981. 40 years this canal has been sitting inoperable. This canal is actually going to affect 800 hectares of land. 800 hectares of land. It's an initiative with the Minister of Agriculture. And with the U.S. government provided 3.5 million USD to help in this development. Altogether, the cost about 3.5 million. And again, it's just about finished. And when it's done, it's going to affect 800 hectares of land. Probably one of the bigger projects, agricultural projects, to come online this year. And so, I love reporting these sort of news stories. I wish I could report them more often. These are sort of big wins that are absolutely necessary for a Haiti that moves forward. We need much more investment of this level happening throughout the country, right? So massive news. Again, the area specifically is La Tanare, located near the Grand Rivière du Nord and Okap, right? So great stuff. Love getting positive pieces of news to share with you guys on that, right? MJ Blaze on YouTube. Do I vote for the diaspora? I agree. Voting should be a part of Haiti, especially when we have 80% of its educated force. And the fact that we're sending $3 billion into $3+ billion into Haiti every year, we've more than earned the right to ensure that we have a voice, right? Nazir Pierre says River Mayon as well should help, and new pumps, right? I think I reported on River Mayon recently. I think sounds familiar, right? So there's been some great work happening. Obviously, there still needs a lot more work to do. For example, I know in the last budget that was just released, the percentage going to the Ministry of Agriculture actually decreased, which is very troubling, especially at a time where I was seeing more and more works coming online, being done within the space. But of course, as we know, too, the budget for Haiti has hit tremendously, given the GDP has shrunk. By the way, those on Instagram, the stream is about to end. I'm sorry, I will not be renewing the stream. So if you're watching right now, go to YouTube Seejeanty, go to Facebook Seejeanty, and continue watching the stream. We got a couple other news stories to get into, right? Okay, peace. So that's a new story as it relates to agriculture. Digicel Conbit pour Changement. It's a annual project initiated by Digicel every year, where they get a dozen to a few dozen of businesses in the country that initiatives, programs, entrepreneurs who need help in funding to get their enterprises off the ground or get it to the next level, right? This year wrapped up. Usually they do a big conference, usually at the Marriott, where they award. So in fact, I went to last year's event, which was very interesting to be there. I enjoyed my time there. Food was really good. But this thing obviously couldn't be done in person because of the effects as it relates to COVID, right? But nonetheless, we had over 25 winners. 15 of these winners gained 1 million good, right, which is equivalent to about 9,000 USD, right? And another 10 got 250,000 good, which is about 2,200 USD, right? So fantastic. I mean, this is real money, right? This is money that can really impact initiatives. And a lot of these initiatives are in agriculturally focused and are health focused. So most of these ventures were agricultural focused or health focused. For those who are interested in knowing the full list of folks who won, I dropped in the chat that list. For the sake of time, I can't really go into it's 25 people, but I dropped the link in chat. So you guys are more than welcome to go ahead and check out the list of finalists, right? So fantastic. And by the way, for those who are interested, I've already started taking applications for next year. I'll drop the email. So if you know anyone in Haiti who's doing a program, initiative, entrepreneurially focused in either agriculture or really any space, to be quite honest with you, have them send a request for more information or send their information about their project. Fondation des projets à digicelgroup.com. This is not a little bit of money. This is impactful amounts of money that really can put a new venture to life, right? So that's that news story. Next up has to do with a scandal. Wizza shipping and logistics. Ooh, nous geze, papa. Oh. Of course, I try to avoid these sort of stories. A lot of folks say, "Oh, Chris, you only share the positives." On purpose. The Zen exists a little too easily in Haiti. But this is important, and in particular, is relevant to us here. So many of us are in America, or Canada, or abroad watching the show, and because of that, we're sending things to Haiti, maybe money to our families, but a lot of times we're sending things to them through these sort of services. So Wizza Shipping and Logistics, what are they? They're relatively large. We have over 12,000 followers on Facebook, on IG. Been around for quite some time now. They are a service that basically you would send, for example, Amazon. You would put their address for Amazon as your delivery location. They would drop it off at their warehouse in America, and then they would ship it across. Obviously, they wait until they have a bulk of different orders, put in a container, ship it across to Haiti. And then from Haiti, they would then deliver it or allow your peoples in Haiti to go pick up that package. So it's a way to sort of get Amazon, a lot of these eBay and a lot of these e-commerce that happens that doesn't happen in Haiti to be able to happen. All right. And even if it's not Amazon stuff, it's products and goods that you're able to ship supposedly relatively easily from America to Haiti. And imagine a lot of folks, I know one of the most common ways to get stuff to Haiti is you find out someone who's going to Haiti and say, hey, Moshe, we got one cell phone sa pou mwen. Let's go. Get parfum la. We got parfum yo pou mwen. Right? Whatever it is, you give it to somebody who's going into the country and they go in for you. Right? So first off, it's a little risky to do that for people because you never really know what's in the things that's being shipped. Right? But also it's an extra hassle because you're lugging an extra bag around. I know a lot of Haitians who do that happily to help their friends out. I personally don't like doing it. I tell my people, listen, I don't want to do it, right? Just because I carry just enough to, as soon as I land, I skim through. And another thing with customs in Haiti, they see a young, young guy. I have 3 times the likelihood of customs in Haiti pulling me to the back to check my bags, right? And especially if I have lots of luggage, right? And so I do my best to avoid that hassle, right? Just by packing light, I pack what I need. I love it when I just have a backpack on, so I can just slide right through the airport, right? And so I've also recommended services like this, maybe not Wizza shipping specifically, but services like this that allow you to send your packages, to a particular place, and then they will bring it in, and then a lot of times they'll deliver it directly to the person's home, right? So now that you understand what this business is, so Wizza shipping has been in the news lately. So a customer by the name of Cybelle La Violette had sent over $4,400 worth of items, cell phones, and laptops, and a bunch of things that you'll be quick. You know how it is when you're Amazon shopping, how quickly your bill will get up there. So I believe that you can rack up $4,400 worth of items, especially if you know that you're sending it through a logistics and shipping company that's able to handle that amount of money and product, right? But months have gone by, and they never got their product, never got their packages. This woman never got her packages, right? Every time they call, it can't be found. They're still looking at it. It still hasn't been shipped. So after so many months, frustration is built. She went to social media, sharing her story that, in effect, this company has not given her packages. After investigation and sleuthing, found out that those packages did arrive, but went potentially somewhere else, potentially to a higher level manager in the company, which is a problem, right? But most importantly, this is where the Zen gets juicy, guys. Are you ready? The cause is, okay, that the owner of Wizza Shipping is allegedly a person who, her name is Jack Kendi Belgad, okay? And because, by the way, this story is out of Ayibobo Post. Great, I respect Ayibobo Post. They one of the few places that actually do real journalism in Haiti, right? So Jack Kennedy Belgad, interesting fellow, right? Because Jack Kennedy Belgad is someone who actually, this is not his first foray into the shipping logistics space. There was a company by the name of Kawabosa.Hta, okay? Kwabosal, right? That operated for many years, purported to be like an Amazon partner, right? Allowing folks to do just like Wizza Shipping was doing, but went bankrupt. Not only did they go bankrupt, they went bankrupt under the same sort of allegations of thievery, theft of packages. And when they went bankrupt, there was countless customers of Kwabosal who never got their packages, right? There was one story, for example, of a gentleman who had a pregnant wife who had bought a bunch of items for, baby products, diapers, formula, all this stuff to send to their pregnant wife to help support their kid, and never got the product, and then lo and behold, they went bankrupt and lost. And this was easily $3,000+ worth of product lost, right? So when that company, Qua Bosal, went under, he fled for America, right? Fled for America, right? Disappeared, right? And so basically everyone was screwed. Then suddenly, Wizza Shipping comes to existence a few years afterwards. If you go right now to floridasunbiz.org, you type in Wizza LLC, you'll see a guy by the name of Jacques Kennedy Bellegarde as the owner, right, of Wizza LLC. Furthermore, this Jacques Kennedy Bellegarde just so happens to be a manager in Wizza Shipping, who also just so happens to be the same person who set up their Facebook, Instagram, and social media presence and a lot of legal paperwork in Haiti, right? When interviewed by Aibobo Post, he says he's just a manager. He doesn't own anything. He's just he has experience in the domain. He was reached out to, and he's just a hire. He's just hired to help. Really? So I said, Becozea, right? And so very interestingly, that's why I had to share this. So this story has so many layers, right? And this is why it's so important in Haiti, when you're doing business, to be so careful, right? And also it's important too, because he doesn't have a better business bureau, right? And reputation matters a lot. Reputation matters a lot in Haiti, right? Because the country is a very small island. Word spreads very fast, right? You have to be that's one of the things that actually usually allows companies to behave appropriately, because Haiti is such a small place with so many people, there's not that many people who really do that degree of activity. So you have to behave appropriately, because it will come back to bite you, right? And I think Wizza is at a place where social media is blowing up. It's been on Instagram. It's been on Aibobo Post. That a lot of packages. And by the way, Cibel's La Violette's story isn't unique, right? There's been a lot of people coming up on social media saying, "Hey, I went to Wizza. I lost my package. I went to Wizza, and a lot of my stuff, didn't come in one piece, right?" So there's been a lot of stories coming out to the woodwork saying Wizza Shipping isn't a legitimate business. Now, that said, in their defense, Wizza Shipping did come out and said, as you said, Jacques Kennedy Bellegarde, who's by the way been operating under a pseudonym of Jacques Michael, right? Said, listen, yeah, I've been, there's another guy named Jacques Michael. It wasn't me, but yet there isn't anyone else in the company named Jacques Michael, right? They've come out and said, listen, we've tried, to resolve it with this woman, Cibel La Violette. Every single time we reach out to her to get an understanding of what was been lost, she adds something to it. Before it was just a cell phone or laptop. Every time we call her, she adds something else to it, and now it's 4,400. And listen, our revenues are only 80,000 a year. That's what they're saying. Our revenues are only 80,000 a year, right? And so, we can't, listen, 4,000 for something that's unsubstantiated. Apparently she can't prove that these items were there. She can't show receipts. And so, listen, we've tried everything to help resolve it. This woman has been cooperative. And so this is where we are. This is what they've responded with, right? Fair and balanced here. We like to hear both sides. So on one side, we have Wizza Shipping saying, hey, we're trying to be a good company here, and we're trying to reach out, but this woman keeps changing langage, and now it's 4,400, and it's crazy. While on the other hand, Cibel says, I have receipts. She says, I've been very clear from the beginning. I know what I shipped. This is what it is like, and you guys have not delivered, and I want my money back. This is the value of the things I shipped, and I want my money back. It's fair. Right. So we have these both sides and they're arguing. And but nonetheless, I can tell you just my perspective. This smells funny. It smells real funny. Like it's one thing, the dispute is one thing, right? But then when you have someone who created a company that went under, and then the same person shows up on the payroll of a new company, and the same sort of complaints are happening again of missing product, right? between you and me, one reason why I'm reporting this story here, I want to ensure that if you're doing business in Haiti, you have as good of experience as possible, right? And given what I'm reading, the little independent research I've done on this, it seems Wizza Shipping and Logistics is probably a company you need to avoid, right? So there are other services out there. I know, for example, there's a company called ShipEx that's basically in the same lane. I know the gentleman who runs that company, someone who I respect tremendously. So if anyone does reach out to me looking to ship things into the country, small products and things like that to the country, I would refer them to that company, ShipEx, SHIPPEX. I haven't heard any negative stories from there, and I know the owner. And if anything does happen, yeah, I can say, hey, wait a minute, Seejeanty, what's going on? And I can make a personal phone call, right? But Wizza Shipping, I'd avoid at least until something else substantial comes out that shows they're under new management, right? So that's where we're going to end that news story. Startup Life follows up, says, I'm interested to know businesses in Haiti and do fulfillment logistics for products they send us. I can't get DHL and POP Haiti to respond, Anadex, FedEx, POP to respond. So DHL works, right? I've used DHL to ship products in and out of the country for a relatively fair price, right? 30, $40 for like, maybe a laptop size item, right? So just go and ship your products. Now, I'm not sure if you're trying to build out a business that's more substantial and more, that's going to have more concurrent, consistent shipping in and out the country. I'm not sure that's your plan, Startup Life. In that case, you probably have to think of other more cost-effective ways to do it. That we could certainly be making an episode at some point in the future on that, on Nous Parler. But DHL works, so that for sure. And Anadex, I've never heard of. It's the first time I'm hearing it, so I can't really say anything to that. But DHL works. It works very well, very quick too. I was very surprised how quickly they get products out of the country, in the country, right? So thanks for that comment there. All right, and the final news, well, actually not the final, almost final segment that has to do with the cultural. There's some real cultural, interesting things happening. The calendar of Fête Champêtre in the north. It is a very important cultural event. It's related to Voudon, but it's also aligned with specific patron saints of the Catholic Church. So it's a mixture, as we know, Voudon is a mixture of Catholicism and more traditional Voudon from Africa. These are rural festivals going to be happening throughout the month of July, from July 7th to 8th. It will be in Caracol. After that, it's moving to Basse Limbé. It's going to move over to Dondon, Port Moreau, Plan du Nord, Limonade. It's going to be moving to these areas. So very interesting. Honestly, if things were a little different, I do my best to bring Seejeanty media out there and make it into a sights and sounds. So certainly maybe next year or whenever they do it again, I will see if Seejeanty media can be there to sort of film that event. Certainly it's one of those interesting things I'd love to get on camera for at least one of these places here. So anyways, just a little bit of news. I wouldn't advise anybody going to Haiti to participate because, again, COVID's a thing. And these places are literally going to have people in close quarters without masks on, right? So certainly a bit troubling event, and I'm not sure how authorities are going to respond to that. But nonetheless, a very important cultural event that's happening. Finally, Beladir. Beladir has a website. It's been founded by, in conjunction with the commune authorities, in addition to just concerned citizens who want to take control of the narrative. I will go ahead and drop the new website, villadebeladir.com. It's really interesting. It's launched by the youth of the city. It's to help promote not just the city, but different specific initiatives, right? It's supposed to offer, space for folks of the city to connect and do things, cultural events, place for the youth to sort of talk about ideas entrepreneurship ideas, civic engagement ideas to help better the city, but also provides a space to highlight work being done. Again, I'm all for, as Seejeanty is all about exactly this sort of mission of highlighting work, highlighting people who are doing very important things throughout the country. So Beladir is basically creating a space, a website specifically to highlight Beladarians who are doing very good, impactful work in their city, right? And so I do recommend that you guys do take a look at that website. That website is really well put together, and it already has some really interesting articles on there. So do add that as on your rotation of places you visit to find out what's going on. And I would love to see, Villa, de Wanamet. I would love to see a Villa de Miagwan. I'd love to see the Commune de Seejeanty, right? A lot of if every city could have a website with this similar idea of highlighting the positive, the good, the impact that's happening in the country, we would be in a much better and productive space, right? So certainly, hats off to the web developers, the commune, the concerned citizens who are part of this website. Hats off, and very happy to be able to report that sort of activity, right? So that is the final news story of the day. Just to provide a very super quick high-level recap of what we talked about today. We talked about the COVID active cases, 4,834 active cases, right? First week, right? This is the first week where we have less active cases than before, which is fantastic, right? We've talked about the fact that the DR is going to continue to close their borders, keep their borders closed, land borders closed, even though they're allowing flights from Sunrise Airways into the country, which is interesting, right? I talked about how if you're flying into Haiti, you should ensure that you have a COVID negative case. Right now, there are no rules and regulation related to flying in the country. You fly in, there is no quarantine, there's no requirement for tests, nothing right now. But there's been a lot of talk from the prime minister, confusing a lot of people, saying that there may be, there will be, there could be, right, in the future, right? So just to be safe, because, Haitian government, they wake up one day and they just decide to make rules, right? So if I've done it, I'm flying this week. I've already got my COVID test on Friday. I'm waiting for the results. I'll have it in my hand when I fly to Haiti. I recommend you do the same, okay? American Airlines has said that they will not be flying to Cap Haitien. They will resume their flights, but Cap Haitien will not be on the itinerary, meaning that Cap Haitien has no international air carriers coming into that airport anymore. Very problematic for the tourism sector for Cap Haitien. Very big hit just for commerce in general and convenience in general for the country. We got Fayez coming out, reporting numbers such as 500,000 food kits throughout the country, 350 community restaurants serving 69,000 hot meals, 146,000 people have received the Mon Cash 3,000 good, and 54,000 workers have received 3,750 good, equal to 15 work days of pay. We talked about international aid and how the World Bank has approved $20 million from the International Development Association to help with COVID response and also help fund additional rounds of programs like Colavi to help. And then we talked about the Haiti U.S. grant program that's providing $23,000 to programs in the country founded to help with development and very loosely defined to allow as many different types of projects with the idea really towards, helping foster a better relationship between Haiti and America. English language should be a part of it, should help foster entrepreneurship and democratic ideals, press, intellectual freedom. So I did drop the link in the chat for those who came in late. I will redrop it again. The deadline for that is July 17. Act fast. I want you guys to get this money if you guys have that right idea. Act fast, guys. All right. Banks, BRH came out with a moratorium for all financial institutions in the country. Individuals and businesses are allowed to only make interest payments until later this year. Very big news, very important news. No late fees are to be assessed on any loans in the country. Very big news, very important news. No dividend payments are allowed for the rest of the financial year. BRH continues to push financial transparency by pushing credit rates, by publishing credit rates on their website. Their website has been adding much, every week they're adding more and more information about what's happening in the country from a financial institution perspective. I highly advise you guys to add BRH Haiti, the website as part of your rotation of things you do to keep informed, right? Prison release, lots of controversy related to the prison release in Haiti. We had commissioners who added people who shouldn't have been added to release, were ineligible. Prime Minister Juth has actually suspended the pardons because honestly, there wasn't any real process. The Minister of Justice was not involved in it, so they were suspending it to try to recalculate who is actually eligible and who is not. The new penal code, we spent a lot of time talking about new penal code. It's a very hot button issue, given that the fact is, the president is passing by decree things that really should not be passed by decree. It really should be a parliamentary action. We understand that, but of course, right now we do not have a parliament, and even when we do have parliament, we don't have a parliament, right? But interestingly, the penal code 10,036 articles is going to become law in 24 months. It's going to replace the prior penal code, which was in existence or initially placed in 1836 with just a few revisions here and there throughout the years. So a completely modern penal code. This penal code is going to include things like probation, alternate sentences to prison, including probation, suspension of driver licenses, probation of professional activity, prohibition against appearing in certain places potentially. Community service is going to be now part of the legal system. There was no community service as a remedy for acts. They're going to allow for mobile electronic surveillance. Probation, again, they have a little thing on your ankle bracelets basically. And of course, no more prison for ticketing, right? Additionally, new offenses are hazing is now a thing. Abortion is now punishable. If the person is forced upon a woman, right, it's punishable. 13 years is now the official considered to be an adult, right? 13 years is the adult. You can be tried as an adult at 13. I don't agree with that. Cost of living adjustments to fines indexed to inflation, right? And Minister of Justice is now going to have to build out that infrastructure. There is some parliamentary activity required, but I'm not sure how that parliamentary activity as relates to approving a lot of these infrastructure changes of the judiciary is going to happen, given that there is no parliament elected or they're going to be elected within 24 months. So I'm not too sure how that's going to happen, right? And so again, very big piece of news that we talked about, spent a lot of time there. Completion of the commission of members to be appointed by the president to offer technical assistance. I didn't mention that, but that is something that is a part of it as well. It's going to help with establishing this. Judges were on strike for 4 weeks. That stopped, right? They've come to an agreement. Part of that agreement is that there's a promise to up the budget for the judiciary in the next fiscal year, in addition to immediate renewal of the judges' mandates, plus debit and fuel cards, and upper revision for their daily expenses of living, right? Cities currently without mayors, all of them, just about, right? Port-au-Prince, Croix-des-Bouquets, St. Marc, a lot of major cities right now in Haiti do not have mayors. There's no functioning executive at municipal level currently. Education, August 10th, schools, universities will be back in session. Global Partnership for Education will be providing $10 million to help with efforts to prep COVID, right? Agriculture, we have 12.6 kilometer of canals currently being just about finished in the Latanare area, Grand Rivière du Nord, and Okap, right? Just about finished. They have 1 kilometer left. It's a 3.5 million USD investment. Again, this is a canal area for 40 years was sitting defunctional. It's going to help repair 800 hectares of land. And they're going to be able to use this to water their agricultural production, which is very big news, very great positive news. Digital Cambridge pour Changement has provided to 15 finalists 1 million good, about 9,000 USD, and to another 10 finalists, 250 good, 2,200 USD, right, for projects related to agricultural entrepreneurship and health focused initiatives, right? And of course, for those who are looking to participate next year, do send out your application to foundationprojet@digitalgroup.com. I'm going ahead and redrop the link, the email to the chat. Wizza shipping logistics scandal. We spent a lot of time talking about that. Long story short, a lot of packages have been missing. A guy who ran to the ground another similar company was found to be a part of this new company. And there's a woman, Sibel La Violette, who is currently down $4,400 without recourse happening, right? I'd advise you avoid Wizza shipping until we hear there's been a change of management at the very least, right? And then finally, culturally, we know the calendar, Fête des Champettes in the north. So basically a month-long celebration, cultural of Catholicism and Voodoo happening this month. And finally, Belladere has come out with a website, which I've dropped, villadebelladere.com. I've dropped it here in the chat. And also, do not forget, look out later today. I will be dropping the entire article, the new penal code in the chat. I want you guys to read it. I want you guys to, I heard this, I heard that, no, read it. It's yeah, so maybe you have to copy and paste and put in some English translator. But I'd rather you guys read it in full, so there isn't any possibility of hearsay. I don't even want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a part of it. Why isn't no? Go read it. It be fini. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at. I want to appreciate everyone who's stuck around for the entirety of the show. We're pushing 2.5 hours. Woo, mama. As always, YouTube Seejeanty is a thing. Make sure to subscribe. We have a lot of content. Now I'm going to be back in the country. Oh, man, I got so much stuff, so much content that's coming up, man. Oh, man, I cannot wait. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check out some of the content we've produced prior. Share your favorite ones. Really looking forward to it. Remember, we got the podcast. We had Duquesne Fernard, who was on recently, a serial entrepreneur, so many businesses to his name. It has 450 jobs he's created, Haitians who are working in his different ventures. He's a Haitian just like you and me, Haitian who didn't have to come back to Haiti, but he wanted to, he needed to, and he's changing the game. He's a role model I look forward to. We had him on the podcast. Do check him out, right? If you're really serious about trying to do change in Haiti, listen to his story. His story will surcharge you, empower you. And there's other episodes on the podcast too, like Mari, the deportee story, who's also doing great things, building homes, educating youth. It's just a powerful story on the podcast. To check it out. Our season finale episode is going to be dropping this week. And from there, we're going to take a bit of a break. We'll try to come back online with the podcast for the end of the year. We'll see, depending on how things are going between my schedule and Mark. We'll see. Again, everyone who provided, through the Square Cash, certainly appreciated. Every penny, every dollar is going to go to the war chest to produce new content. And I can tell you, I promise you, that money has already been spent investing into doing a better production. I about a very nice, high quality aperture lens. The fact I'm talking to you right now on this new webcam, all part of what you guys have provided. So thank you. As always, though, share the stream. That's the thing you can do, costs you nothing, but impacts tremendously. So if you enjoyed this episode, you enjoyed what we talked about today, and you want other people to be informed in a way that makes them think without conspiracies and all that, share the stream, especially those who contributed to the conversation. You did a great job. You're the co-host of this. Share it. Share your contribution. You did a great job. Thank you. Right? So thank yourself. Share the stream. Right? And again, finally, we will not be on air next week. I will be in the country. I will be catching up on a lot of stuff I need to be catching up on after being out the country for 4+ months. So, but you will catch me on the Haitian Millennial Conference. It's happening later on Saturday. I think it starts at 12 on Saturday. I think our panel, my panel, will be on around 4:30 or 4, somewhere around there. So you'll catch me there if you can't get your man. I haven't got my feel of Seejeanty for the weekend like I'm used to. You'll catch me on there, okay, on July 11th. All right. And beyond that, listen, guys, I appreciate you. You guys are the real MVP. You guys are the change of Haiti is possible because of you guys, right? In my lifetime, we just got to continue to empower ourselves, encourage ourselves, make the right choices. It's possible. It's possible, but it's in our hands. So let's keep doing what we're doing. We'll get there. All right. Listen, until we're back at it again, guys, we'll be back at it again. Peace.